Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Pelham. This is executive session for the planning board. Could I have a roll call? Starting to my left, please.
Kyle Icorn,
Brad Valentine.
Tim Pritchard.
Carol Hannah.
Jenny Sisson.
Andrew Holloway.
Stephanie, you get Cheryl to say it.
She is, but I'm trying to promote her to a panelist, but she is.
She is on Zoom.
Yep.
Okay.
Cheryl's there and Jeff.
I think she's driving, so she
Oh.
might not be able to unmute herself.
Yes, I'm unmuted, guys. I'm here.
Hannah's on
Okay.
Zoom, as well as Jeff, town attorney.
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, I could have the board to look at the March minutes on your iPads, and I'll take motions to approve unless there's corrections or additions.
I'll make a motion to approve the March minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Carol, Brad. All those in favor of the March minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you. There's no new, old business, new business. The I-69 Interstate Interchange Master Plan, possible amendment, and discussion only. We really brought this meeting together for the board, with staff, and planning department, and the public. We spent a lot of time, effort, and money on this plan or map, if you want to call it, for the last several years. This took a lot of work. We hired consultants. We hired consultants to give us their input, what they thought should go out there based on Pendleton's growth, Pendleton's atmosphere. Kind of labeled, can you put that up there, Steph? That. They kind of labeled the quadrants, if you will, kind of cut it 4 different pies there. And going forward, after we got the plan kind of adopted and approved, through that process, we redid our complete unified development plan in conjunction with that, which is 250 pages, I believe, which took several years to update that to all the new standards, regulations, specs, and what we wanted. So fast forward from there, we've had a lot of inquiries, people wanting to develop, build, et cetera, out there. We've got labels on some of those different collars out there. Those labels were put there obviously by consultants and us, primarily just as labels. So we kind of knew what we were talking about then, maybe going forward. I don't think those labels are actually set in stone. A lot of things could, probably will change. That's why we're here tonight, because we've had a lot of developers and or landowners come to us over the last 18 months, showing a lot of interest in those parcels out there with different ideas. Some are looking at what we have. The one in particular would be the southwest, the lower left quadrant there. If you can see it, it says residential development district down in that corner. We've had somebody from Texas want to build 4 warehouses, 200,000 square feet apiece, which numerous truck traffic a day. We've got a car recycling facility want to come in there, 113 acres, just south of the Gaines property or the main Welcome property. Recycling automobiles, parts, and 7,000 cars stored outside. Sell used parts to body shops or whatever. We have met with a home builder. They showed great interest in it. They haven't come back yet, but anyway, we thought we really need to get together to see if we want to stick with those labels, change the labels, amend the labels, or go forward, because I think everybody on the board, staff, Scott, that area out there is going to explode real quick. It's coming up 69 faster than we ever dreamed, particularly at the lapel exit. It's crazy down there. It's just a matter of time. It's going to come up here. I would imagine once the credit union and the Starbucks open. It's just gonna be bait for everybody else to come. If you don't know can you move that, can you slide that at all, Bev, over to where that roundabout is coming out of the school property?
Can't shift it, I can make it a little bigger.
Or put your cursor there.
So you're talking about like,
Yeah, go down. No, right there. Okay, that's the eastern roundabout. That property that is, I'm gonna call it lavender or red, whatever it is. That's been sold, approved for development. In the front parcels down by the roundabout are 2 retail lots. Just to the north of that, they had planned to build 2 apartment complexes, communities. Different styles. I think one was going to be more of an apartment, 2 or 3 stories. One was going to be more of a townhome type development, on each side of the road. That black line is there's actually the road they're going to put in. It only goes up to where the red horizontal line is their property. It doesn't, they won't put the road in all the way to 132. That's a separate piece of property. But they also envisions maybe some light manufacturing, light industrial in the back. We told them we really didn't want big warehouses back there. There's a subdivision over to the right. It's called the Woods. They originally expressed they want to put that road, come in and make a hard right and turn, go back north against the Woods. We told them no. They put the road in the center to bisect the property. We don't want the road over next to the subdivision and disturbing those homes that are already there. So there is a lot of activity out there. It's been approved. They haven't broken ground in that yet. There's a convenience store going in that lower right corner there where that red property we just talked about. I mean, they can break ground any day if they come in, submit plans and go through that step. They're ready to go. So that's kind of where we're at and why we're here tonight, to go over that plan, see if we want to stick with it, make changes. So there's a lot of people coming in, and there might be people pulling up online and see it says residential and they want to buy that land and they go on because it's labeled residential. You know, I don't know if we need to change those. It says future development or give us your idea or what, but kind of want to get the board together. It's hard for us to discuss those things in a meeting with developers. It's all about that one person, that one item on the agenda that night. So to go into that. Scott, I think you had some comments first.
Or-
Go.
Yeah. Sorry. Yep. I'll go ahead and go ahead and just add on to what Tim said. I apologize. I've got a bit of a flu, so I sound like a troll. Please forgive me. So as far as the southwest quadrant of the plan, I'd like to just let everybody on the board and in the public know that right now there's not any major projects or petitions that are going before the Planning Commission for rezone. Right now, we might have some soon, but this isn't, we're looking to update or change this plan to adhere to someone that's coming in with a rezone petition. So there's kind of 3 points I'd like us to discuss this evening. And those 3 points are what the residential areas mean in the southwest quadrant per the I-69 plan. What are other potential uses that could be acceptable in this area should residential never come about? And when the commercial development that serves that Keystone District, so that brown blob that's south of 38, when that can start to develop. So the first point, what does the residential yellow blob mean in the southwest quadrant? So in the I-69 plan, it currently states, quote, frontage along 38 will support the Keystone Development District north of the road, and executive style homes are planned in the remaining area with regional stormwater management near Foster Branch. There's also language that says the market analysis indicates that executive style single family houses will have market traction at this location. Now, it's been brought to my attention that the intent of the residential style of this quadrant was envisioned, and again, I wasn't here when this was made. This got past the first month that I started working for the town, but it was meant to be a mix of higher end residential style housing, which could include not only that single family style, but townhomes, condos, possibly some multifamily, with the denser housing areas closer to the highway and the less dense areas, the single family lots moving inward. However, if that's the goal of this quadrant, it's really not reflected anywhere clearly in our text. So I wanted to open the dialogue for what other possibilities of development might be feasible. Should we add that clarification style language to this quadrant? And also, should it ever not develop residential, what are some other things that the town would appreciate, could digest, and could get rezoned that would fit our community plan? So I know areas along highways are typically, to this point, denser, and then they get less dense as you move in. So if it is to just remain residential, I think we should clarify that point, because right now, all we say is executive style single family housing. We don't talk about condos, townhouses, multifamily, anything dense. It just does in fact sound like large lots with large houses. So that's really all I have to say. So if Scott or Denise had any additional staff comments before we kind of open this up for discussion, we could go ahead and do that.
Well, you said that well, even.
Thanks, Hannah. That was tough.
Sorry, my voice is going to be gone by tomorrow.
So a little bit about, even before Hannah was here. So what we're talking about is right here. You got my little pointer working, right? Guys, Craig and Denise should wear sunglasses in case I. But anyway, even before this was released internally in the rough draft, there was a lot of internal professional debate about this. I always felt that especially this bottom tip would not go well for residential, especially executive, as it was stated in the draft and eventually in the final version. Because I just don't see a market for that. Who wants to spend, take the risk of developing high end against the highway? And I'm watching what had happened around 465 in Indianapolis, and there was a lot of some like 2 or 3 story offices that were going in, and being next to the highway actually was sort of cool and energetic. And if you've ever been inside those office buildings, they're very quiet. You can't hear the interstate, but it just felt very energetic with the traffic going by and that sort of thing. So I always thought that something 2 or 3 stories or townhouse down here would work. And then sort of confirmed my suspicions with the property owner stated he couldn't get a developer that interested in doing high-end second homes like the plan published. So anyway, obviously I lost the debate because it ended up being stating executive residential in that residential development district. I've always felt that the way to do it was to transition from denser, either office to townhouses to then single family, and then eventually up here, Keystone District, and then or just townhouses. You do see this along 465 now. Townhouses to single family transition. So this debate that we're having tonight is actually a very old debate. It's still back and forth internally before it even became a plan. I hope that Denise, did you want anything to set this, anything else to set the stage?
Just, you know, from, and I too am new to the planning staff as far as into this process and the development of the I-69 interchange master plan. But from, you know, my understanding and from my colleagues, you know, in our department, the mixed use of residential types and developments seem to be kind of identified separately into each different quadrant. So like this quadrant here, the plan indicated, the market analysis and the study indicated that what would be best drawn into this area was executive style home, single family properties. The northwest residential district area on the left side, I believe, was more of the larger single family properties. And then on the proposed the proposed roadway, which is the 67th Street extension, to the east of that would be smaller lots, single family homes. And then the quadrant to the northeast, residential development area, more up front, you can see here the multifamily and the orange down here below. And yes, right there, that's multifamily. That has gone through a rezone and it's shifted a little bit to where it's more in the midsection of that property, both east and west of that Heritage Way there, once that is extended. But the yellow area up above was single family homes again, to be blended and complementary to the homes that are off of 425 South and 600 there. And then this area down here, bit of it, these properties here are actually out of the jurisdiction of the town of Pendleton currently. It's unincorporated Madison County. But those 2 or 3 properties there, they were the ones that were deemed more fitting for like the townhomes, the condos, you know, that type of mixed use residential properties, more higher density properties. So it seems to, you know, to me that all collectively as a whole gives a nice mixture, a nice balance of residential types, but each different area seems to identify what they felt was more appropriate in that area. But again, just like Scott said and Hannah said, that we as a planning department staff, this board, as well as the property owners in this area, they've not received any approaches or interest to develop that residentially. And then also just want to introduce to let everyone know in the audience and those tuning in, we also invited Craig Campbell. He's the president of the Redevelopment Commission. Redevelopment Commission was the first body that spearheaded this project and were members of that as this was developed, and then with the Plan Commission and ultimately. So just wanted to let everyone know he is here with us today too. That's it.
To Denise's comment there about no one to date has approached us residentially. Yeah, the left half that down there,
Right here.
right, is a guy by the name of Urbanus owns that. That was platted in 04. Long story short, they never did anything with it to date. And we actually rezoned that back to ag. They never have developed it since 04. The regs all changed while we rezoned it back. The right half, there's another gentleman, that's what they've come to us with the warehouses, the car recycling facility. And as Denise said, he's never been approached by a home builder at any level, from starter to high. I'm not making a case for it, but I'm just trying to get all the facts out there. But that's a tough spot down there in that hole.
I guess there are 2 things that I would like some comment on from staff and Scott. We haven't talked about really the linchpin on the west side of the interstate, and that's the Keystone development area. What is really envisioned in the Keystone, because that is the gateway to both the northwest quadrant and the southwest quadrant. And then in a follow-up, I'd like to talk about the 67th Street extension.
Yeah, so Brad, I can kind of speak to that. We're looking to do a more in-depth plan for the Keystone. Right now, it's just a blob on a map with an idea, which is fine, but I think we're looking into more of it's a 3,000-foot view right now, and we're looking to have a more established plan for that area, basically a zoom in of this map, and its own kind of development plan. That's something that we've been looking at, possibly hiring a consultant to work with us on that, so we have a much better idea, because our population is growing quickly. And so I know that that area is kind of on hold until we reach a certain population that can feed it and keep it alive and can utilize it. So I know that in particular is on the horizon. Hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, we'll be able to do something with that. However, the southern part of that Keystone District, really the only property that's available for development right now is one of the Gaines parcels in between Mystic Waters and Bain Welker. So that was kind of something I did want to discuss this evening, is that lower part below 38 is meant to serve the Keystone, which is completely fine. But is that something that can be triggered before that population threshold that that we're looking to reach? Or is that something that needs to wait as well? Would it be included in this zoomed in kind of Keystone development particular plan? So that's something I did want to discuss. I think the plan right now states that it is clumped in with the Keystone District. But it might be better to let that kind of develop as commercial, residential, or commercial retail is what it says first. But again, that's something we can discuss. So we have plans in the future in the near future, mind you, to address that Keystone and get a really good solid plan for it.
So the background on it, so she described exactly what it's supposed to do, but the reason it is there is that there is a real danger with having two downtowns too early. And that would, if we had a second downtown there on the west side, that it would hurt the downtown here. And one of the things that's going to be good about the growth is that we think the value of the downtown will become more important than an attraction, plus it helps keep identity of the town in place. So the threshold is 20,000, and that was a scientific wild, guess as to what would be the right population to where we would open that up. So it's two purposes: protect the downtown and then prevent from having two downtowns too early. In other words, if that develops, there would probably be a lot of grocery, retail, restaurant that would detract from the west half of the town. One of the problems we have if we're not careful is we've got an I-69 that splits the town in half. If we're not careful, we feel like two towns.
Taking a look at the 20,000 threshold,
Mhm.
was there any preliminary planning as to what we would like to see anchored in there? Because it really sets the tone for the developments north and south.
So that's
Depending upon what you
what
put there.
Hannah was saying, is that we probably need to get into more detail. For this study, it was more just to put a place marker and to establish the fact that we didn't want too much development out there too early that would create that second downtown.
Scott,
The plan,
which you think is gonna come first? That's chicken and the egg question. Think the retail's gonna come first, or the houses on the outside of it?
On the Keystone District,
Yeah, then we're gonna build the houses in the yellow, or we're gonna build the retail first.
well, we didn't, I don't think there's not a danger in the residential going in first. We felt that at 20,000, that's where there would be enough population that the downtown, the old downtown, this downtown we're sitting right now, would be very vibrant.
As staff, we get more inquiries, commercial related businesses for those properties around. Get a lot of questions about zoning.
A lot of towns that experience rapid growth, they killed their downtown by allowing a elaborate development to happen out near their interstates or other states.
Zionsville had a similar footprint.
Brad, as far as land use for the Keystone development, the plan does specify generally what it's looking for. So for the southern part of it, it's a commercial retail development. And for the northern part, which that southern is to feed and kind of be a prelude into, that northern part is more for kind of destination place businesses, something that would be kind of touristy attraction, something that will draw a lot of people into the community. That's kind of what land uses that has been outlined in the plan itself. And I think that's like Scott was saying and Hannah was saying, that's why that earmark of that 20,000 population was to protect the downtown areas and the existing developments and businesses before something to that degree comes in.
Think of Hamilton Town Center. You can imagine Hamilton Town Center being there right now with this low population. Where do you think all the economy is going to go? Downtown.
They
Scott,
got,
if I
they
might.
built all the houses down there first.
If I could jump in for a second.
That town center's got to draw from 6, 8, 10 miles away from there.
Well, it draws from Pendleton.
Yeah, well, we go down there. You go down, everybody goes down there. Because we don't have it here.
One of the initial things that was talked about, not by anyone in particular, but when this plan was drawn up for this section, the future Keystone, everything that Denise just said, but we were really hoping to pull in some professional, high-tech business that would employ people who lived here, here, and here. So they didn't have to drive to work necessarily. So it was, and that was a shot in the dark, pie in the sky thing, but there are a lot of those places starting to form now. And there are a lot of people who say, why would I drive to work if I could ride my bike or walk or drive a very short distance if I lived right here, here, or here to work here.
Well, that's
So-
what's behind Exit 10 now.
Yeah.
North of all the restaurants is all business.
Exactly. And that's what we that's what we envisioned any businesses for this whole thing, when the RDC was talking about this with Illinois, was professional stuff. We've got enough industrial, we've got enough of that in the industrial area down there. We would really like to see a professional campus, professional businesses, high tech, things like that move in here, which will then bring the Starbucks and the restaurants and the that's and that. But it was never intended to be a second downtown. It was always intended to augment what Pendleton has right here in this downtown. Kenway Horn recognized the downtown and the park as our two gems, the two shining gems for Pendleton. And he said we would never do anything to disturb that. This is to augment this for people moving here and want to live here. And you're absolutely right, Tim. None of this is set in stone. Kenway Horn said that. You can change it all you want. I would caution you on changing it too much. Because if we just start throwing things at the wall and changing names to future development, no problem. But if we start moving things around, then the plan just falls apart and we need another plan. Now, if we need another plan, okay, but also remember this plan, while expensive, it also took into consideration a great deal of input from the community, from the people of Pendleton. I don't know how many focus groups they held, and they were all well attended, the ones I attended. I attended numerous focus groups. And the people said, this is what we want. So I know we're not talking about changing completely, but I think we should just keep that in mind, that this wasn't some consultant that came and said, do this, and you'll be fine. Yes, they had an input on this, with the research that they've done, but these ideas were the town's ideas.
Well, I've been thinking about that as we're talking about this, is I'm not sure this board would be the right group of people to start proposing any kinds of changes because of the work that's been done. I mean, we can talk about what we'd like to see, but we're just 7 ideas.
I didn't really initiate this, so it would change.
Change. Yeah,
I just want us to be ready.
yeah, yeah.
For when Simon comes in and says, I want to build X to 10, is that what we want?
Yeah.
Do we want it there or here? Somebody comes in and says, we're gonna build townhomes and residential homes, and all this, is that what we want?
Could I ask one other, could I ask one other question? What are, how much are our impact fees? To the town?
For a home,
Mhm.
the impact fees are about, well, with the park and the town, about 13,000, 12,000, 13.
I'm sorry.
Impact fees,
Impact
Park in
fees,
town for residential.
So-
park in the town's about 12.
if you count park and road impact fees, 12.
Altogether, Craig, you're looking at about 20 grand per home.
It seems high.
No.
Is that why the
That's-
realtor or the developers aren't coming?
Well, that's
No.
what they say.
That's what they say, but we've had a guy out of Arkansas want to build on the Bagley property at Huntsville, which was kind of a booger of a site. It was rolling. They had other ground. They didn't bat an eye at the impact fees. The guys that want to build down here on the left half of that southern orange, not a problem. It's only 12. The other 7 or 8 is building permit, inspection fees, tap fees. They're gonna pay that anyway.
And most communities that are developing rapidly have those in place.
Oh, absolutely. We had that. We had to have impact.
Yeah.
We waited too long.
We did.
Absolutely.
This place up north there.
I will tell you what's happening is, you get this is what happens. I mean, I work for developers. They come here, they see our impact fee, they see our higher standards, and they jump to where there's lower standards, less impact fees. It's a little bit closer to Indianapolis, and that's our neighbor in Eagles.
They'll be back.
They'll be back as soon as that fills up, but I'm sorry, I could let a cornfield stay a cornfield for 10 years.
We don't have to give it away.
We don't have to give it away, and we don't have to accept junk. If you're not gonna accept, why don't they do? If they can build them all they want somewhere else, chase the population, chase the growth, but
Trust me, we fought them hard, this board has, with vinyl siding and standards. Flat set up.
And I don't disagree with the suggestion of changing what might go down here, to townhomes or things like that. That fine, you know, that we still have other residential areas to choose from. I just don't think we should stray too far from the plan that we have,
Well, I think
or
we
we're gonna
did
need a
that.
new plan.
Yeah, I think we did that in that little pink, purple, whatever area, is we
There.
didn't, yeah, we shifted around a little bit. We kept the idea generally of what we wanted there, but we made some little minor tweaks, so we kept
We
the
changed the
integrity.
orientation.
Yeah,
and then
we kept the
transitioned it
integrity of
backwards
the
into the
intent,
property.
but we didn't stick strictly to those.
But so to Scott's point, it's gonna end up being a mirror image of over there south of 38. It's gonna have retail in the front. We're gonna have apartments behind the retail. The light manufacturing in the back.
And we want to make sure that as we go west, we've got a good transition, because once we get, then we do have the executive style homes that we need to make sure we transition into, so it flows without anybody.
So does this, we have the comp plan, what, 2018? Does this override the comp plan of this area then?
yeah.
Yes,
If it shows all business, So I don't,
Yeah, the comp plan, this is an appendix to that. So since it's the more recent, it overrides or overlays what the comp plan has there. The comp plan as a whole is something we're looking to update completely soon. We have a lot of things we can do, like I guess a minor update to it, all the things that we've accomplished or have started doing, updating the zoning map and it, little things like that. But a full comp plan update is going to take a lot of time and planning, so and money. So we're looking to maybe focus funding more on the site-specific Keystone development area first, because comp plans aren't, bad after 5 years. It's just recommended that you update them every 5 years. So if we have to go 6 years on that one, I think we're comfortable doing that if we have kind of a better idea for the Keystone District. So what I'm hearing is that perhaps we should update the language for that residential development district in the Southwest to maybe reflect allowing some of those, what it sounds like was discussed before the administration now got here, about the condos, the townhomes, and how it's going to be transitioning from a denser use to that less dense use, perhaps that executive style housing. And then I would like to kind of get your thoughts on, should we also update language to allow development in the Keystone area that's south of 38? Can that go first? Does that have to wait until we get to 20,000 people? Or could we start developing some of those commercial, retail, restaurants, things like that along 38 right now?
what's the timeline on 20,000?
When do we think?
Um,
Green Township is growing much more rapidly than we are, so
Which township?
just the outside of town limits. I mean, we've only got, what, 3 neighborhoods building in town limits right now, and there's no new ones on the horizon. So it seems like we're gonna jump up, and then it's gonna be years before we get to 20,000.
So I don't see anything happening in Walgreen Township. Now, in Green Township, down at exit 214, yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
But that has no bearing on this trigger, what's happening down there.
But I thought you're.
So when do you think we'll hit 20, I guess,
That's the main.
to activate the Keystone?
So we know where we're at now. So census was 4717. We know we fill up at a normal density that we allow. We have enough space for 40,000. What we don't know is what fills up first and then how quickly, because that's so dependent on a lot of variables, one of them being just the economy. So the interest rates going up, we saw a significant drop in housing starts in subdivisions that are already under development. Probably only a quarter of the homes that were started in 2022. In 23, we'll probably see a quarter of what we saw in 22. So that's the magical question. You'll see a lot more activity in Ingalls, of course, because they're closer, they're the next exit closer to Indianapolis, plus their standards are lower and they're letting anything go in. So with all said that.
So that's your point, Scott, the homes come first. Then they build everything out. Taylor's restaurant, all that's done, that's just sprouting up like that.
So I guess my question is, we're competing with 2 other exits that we don't control. How do we compete and bring in quality development?
We don't need to compete. We set our standards, and if they don't meet the standards, then we're not going to accept them. There's no prize for growing faster. There's no prize for any of that. There's no financial benefit
Or hurry.
Growth, rapid growth does nothing more than put you in debt. It doesn't solve any problems. Rapid growth allows you to make your mistakes faster and not give time to correct for it. So there is no reason to grow fast. There is no financial reason to grow fast. Time is on our side. If we're gonna do this right, let's take advantage of it. I can't tell you how many towns and cities I've worked for as a civil engineer over the years, and they made the mistake of thinking, getting excited about the growth, thinking it's gonna solve their problems. What they end up doing is having a lot of vinyl villages go in. Yeah, they had some more revenue generated, they thought. They would have to do nice things and build a bigger park and all this stuff, and in the end, they didn't have their own hometown anymore.
Let me follow up on the question. Years ago, there was a discussion of a healthcare facility going on the north end of town, up at 967 and 69. I mean, all of the sizing for Fall Creek Regional Waste was designed around a high usage, high volume, basically small hospital. So my question is, we sit in between Anderson and Ingalls exit 214. If one of the 3 or 4 major healthcare facilities is looking for the next development north, coming up from Hamilton Town Center and Oleo Road, we have both Saxony as well as St. Vincent's. From a timing perspective, there are certain, what I will call quality commercial developments or healthcare developments that you may want to try to attract here versus allowing it to go in at the Anderson exit or potentially at the Ingalls exit. So that was kind of where I was coming from, not growth for the sake of growth, not lowering standards, but there are some anchor developers that potentially should be courted. And that's one of my questions. Are we courting and providing a view of this master plan to the developers that we would want? Say a Dell Web community, say, hey, community hospital, IU Health, Ascension St. Vincent's, you know, here is how we envision this town growing. Here are our projections on population. You know, what are your thoughts? How do we partner with you to develop potentially the southeast quadrant with regards to healthcare and professional?
Because we're doing this right, they're coming to us. We don't need to attract them. We've had some confidential conversations. And they've asked us not to reveal their plan. And if you look right here, that's a wellness district.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And
Be the
then,
southeast quadrant.
yeah, so a hospital or a medical facility would fit right in here as a technology, advanced manufacturing technology district. It's medical technology.
Multifamily.
So
Go ahead, Joe.
So I hear you saying that time is on our side. What I don't understand is, so how do we get presentations in front of us that we haven't supported if we think the right quality is coming our way?
oh, that's very easy. State law requires us to present a
Okay, that's my
petition.
question.
Right.
So,
So if
how,
Joe Junkyard shows up and says, we'd like to petition, by state law, we have to allow them to come forward. And I think that one of the things that we're very conscious of as staff is try to make sure every time we try to remind the audience, the public, they're here, that staff is doing their job. It's required by state law to bring that forward. We can't turn it down. Get in trouble legally. So.
But they're made
because-
aware of what our ordinances and what our plans are, so,
Everything's on one.
yeah, I would hope
Yeah.
that they're making,
Well, they're used to 9 times out of 10 going in
and then
and,
just pull it. and-
yeah, pull wool over people's eyes and like glaze over. And, you know, so they're testing you.
Yeah.
They're testing your, how true are you or how serious are you about doing this right? Because It will
Our
test you and
quasi-plan.
take advantage of your.
Even though it's an executive session, let's just speak like.
Oh, okay.
Stay
I'm
positive,
sorry.
stay positive. That's all right.
Mike Romack, and I'm at 400 East Madison Avenue, so I don't live out there, but I wanted to make a couple of points. I did own the property that's kind of in the middle on the southwest corner. It's about, now it's about 8 acres. It's paying Welker.
Right.
Okay, so, and then
Up here. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's a little square in there.
Right there.
And of course, the campgrounds is along 38 there, okay? Other than, in 2004, there was Urbans, as you said, came in and wanted to put housing in that left side. It was defeated by what is to the left, the nice homes in the next area there. So consider these, if you would, consider a couple of things. Number one is that there's two property owners there. Urbans and, yeah, Gaines. So, you know, when you're thinking about it in the future and how you do that, keep in mind that they might not want to sell a parcel off. Gaines wants to get rid of his whole 100 acres. And that's what he's trying to bring to you and has not succeeded in getting the things that you want. Urbans has got that thing set, like you said, a plan that's out there, but they own the other side of that property. So at some point in time, they could be able to, they may want to get rid of their whole thing, or they may want to develop what's along State Road 38. And all of that in mind, you've got a commercial property of 5 to 8 acres. Bain Welker, it's a nice building, but I think Hannah knows that they want to add 90 by 120 square feet on the back side of that building. So it's only going to make it more commercial. So that's those two things that you should be thinking about, is the fact that those are two pieces of property that they won't want to cut them off. They'll want to sell them the whole thing. That's my opinion, but I'm pretty sure Gaines wants to sell it.
Well, in fact, he just put a broker sign up last couple of weeks. Some signs.
So that's all I wanted to comment on. Was in 2004, it didn't get through when the thought was it transitioned from commercial to Urban's residential to the higher priced properties to the left. And that didn't go through in 2004. And it's going to be tough to get through even today. Again, commercial, residential, higher residential. Only thoughts that I wanted to put to you.
Thanks, Mike. Just to clarify one point, we didn't defeat the Urbanus property. They never submitted the proper documents to get it. It's been a very sore spot for us the last 3 years.
Yeah, I'm sure it has been.
Scott, give us a background on the 67th Street extension, because that'll help set the tone north coming through the Keystone District and dumping right in the south end.
So I had to be careful because I worked on that project before I was here. So I can just give you some. I shouldn't give you an opinion. There was leftover congressional earmark money left over for the work that was done on 67th Street and 73rd Street in Anderson. And so they decided to use that money to do an alignment study to extend that down out to the west and then down to the south. And then there was, the city of Anderson asked if Pendleton wanted to use some of that money to do an alignment study for a stretch right here and stretch right here. Now, it would show that study, that those were connected. However, Pendleton was given control of what they wanted to do down here. And the intent at the time, as I understood, Tim and Rachel decided to go ahead and become part of that study, was to look at what was important for them is to look at line coming off of Anderson was looking at. It was originally 73rd and then changed it to 67th. But I think Anderson's intent is just to go to the west enough, get the alignment study done, and then start construction. But I don't think their vision was bring it down here because of the requirements for the airport that it had to be multi-jurisdictional. You know. So what Pendleton got out of it was a free alignment study to look at where with this road is developed, or also right here. Those are two vital north-south arteries. What it would do is traffic coming in here would, instead of always coming through town, it had the option of going north and then down to 132 and up to the north part here. And then also this road here would keep us from having to build a major road over here and interfering with established residences here, and also be good for development here, like we talked about, grocery store. So that's the history behind that. The only requirement was that Anderson needed to, or Pendleton needed to build, the federal requirement is they needed to build at least 1,000 feet of road. They took that money for design, so they had to build. Anderson's full intent was just 67th Street part.
And Scott, I can speak on kind of the progression of that project. So since there's a conflict of interest with Scott, I'm the liaison for Pendleton on that project. And it hasn't gone anywhere in about 8 months. I believe there's some, not stonewalling, but there's just, it hasn't moved through NDOT's proper processes to kind of get it moving. So it's a project that, you know, to connect Anderson's chunk to ours, I would almost think that since ours will be built by developers as they move north through the Keystone, through the residential and connect to 132, I almost feel like ours might be built before it reaches 132 and connects. Either way, it'll connect to 132, but as far as going from 38 all the way up to Anderson, that's going to depend on them. So, you know, it's not, it's kind of exactly the same as the Kulkarni property, which is at the Heritage Way roundabout. They're going to be required, the developer, whoever it might be, whether it's Shree or he sells off pieces of his property, to develop that road north. Or if the residential goes in first, they would be required to build their chunk from 132 down to the Keystone if it develops secondarily to that. So that's kind of where that project is. We have monthly meetings on it, and it's usually the same input from the Anderson town engineer. It hasn't moved in quite some time.
I don't think anybody's got the money for that. That's the biggest problem.
It's a lot of money, yeah, for sure. So, oh, go ahead.
Looking down the road, all of the development on that side of Anderson is heavy industry, heavy truck, and heavy traffic. As I look at, if there is an extension that ties into 38, how do we prevent heavy truck traffic from disrupting or destroying the residential neighborhoods that we're planning on the north end, putting heavy truck traffic through the Keystone District, which is targeted to be a destination site, attracting people to the community, and then, if you will, adding further congestion and setting a tone that we really don't want, because our plan really doesn't have any amenities for trucks, truck parking, the development similar to what Ingalls did that stunted their residential growth by putting in truck stops, truck maintenance facilities, truck sales. So how do we prevent destroying the existing neighborhoods?
That's easy. So Pendleton has control of this. They don't have to allow trucks. And also, I don't know why the truck would come that way. That dedicated way.
They like to use 400 west. as it is, so. Every day. they go
Those
back.
guys,
yard.
those 1% that's going to Nestle that comes through town, up through your neighborhood. Well, first of all, it says Kyle lives here, so go through his. But they think this is, we can't get it changed. They think this is state road 38. Google and all those. Definitely will tell you, and I am not exaggerating, how many hours, 12 hours? NDOT doesn't know how to do it. They're frustrated. There's no conduit to try and get to it. But anyway, so you just don't allow it to happen. So it won't, it's not gonna be you don't want it to be a semi drain. It's not a semi.
And Brad, there's gonna be semi-traffic regardless, but as far as the Keystone District allowing things like truck stops, truck maintenance, truck sales, things
No,
of
that's,
that
Yep.
nature, I
Never-
think,
Yeah.
I think getting that more 300-foot view development plan in place that we're looking to do will help alleviate maybe some of those worries.
Well, I can envision not having a straight road, but maybe winding with some.
Yeah,
berm with the
yeah.
Island and making it, so.
that's not gonna stop trucks.
Well, just.
If we prohibit it, I mean, that's a key step. And what I'm hearing is we can prohibit heavy truck traffic and incenting trucks from Anderson to use the southern route for access to 38, 36, and 69.
Yeah, I mean, that's that simple, or you just don't do a connection. This is sort of no man's land. This is not Anderson. This is,
So Anderson wouldn't build that extension then.
I would like,
How about
I
something?
would love
big
to
drop
annex
in there?
this just for that reason,
Right.
just so that we control. I just don't know why we would want to make the connection. There's no incentive to take it up there. Connection there. The only semis that would come through here, just if it should, I'm granted, there's always the interloper. We're gonna have that, but it's just the delivery. We can't keep them off at 30 days.
Because it wouldn't be ever a state road. I mean, you're saying that Google still treats it as though it's a state road.
Yeah, the reason we get these semis coming
Yeah.
through is that Google says this is 38.
Yeah.
So it shows them the state road. For some reason, it likes to take it up to 25, to 600 south, 400 west, 535 south. Those big rocks, they rip open their cargo, and they keep on driving. The funniest thing, they hit those rocks and they don't care.
Yeah, so this wouldn't be a state road, and I think what I'm hearing is that, the trucks, unless they're making a local delivery, have to use state roads. So this would just be a local primary arterial, that north-south connection there from 132 to 38. But I'm really appreciating the dialogue that we're having. But if I could possibly steer you guys back to kind of the initial reason that we came together this evening with the Southwest Quadrant, and maybe getting some more definitive text, even if it is just adding some additional housing styles, or if this is something that, we could take before RDC, since they were the ones who, footed this project, and kind of just defining that a little bit better. And also some possibilities of, like Brad, kind of you were saying, you know, if there is a hospital that comes in, we have plenty of other places they could go, but should they want to build in this quadrant instead, if that's something that's digestible, if they do it right, or what I've been hearing a lot of is that Pendleton doesn't have, let's see, multi-tier life care. So, you know, as populations are getting older and they want less maintenance housing, so a retirement village, if you will. You know, if that's something that we're to want to use this quadrant instead of another for whatever reason, it's still kind of housing, but it's more of an institutional style use. So that's kind of where I'd like us to steer back to, as well as the development of retail, commercial, general business style, you know, in between Vane Welker and Mystic Waters, and even more to the west on our Bonds' property, should they choose to do that, and how this board in particular feels about those kinds of things.
And what would put it on the May meeting?
For RDC,
No, for us.
oh, okay.
I think we might have a brainstorm between now and then. There's nothing we need to do tonight, but I think we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, and I mean, this wasn't supposed to be anything that, you know, we were voting on stuff, but just to kind of get a better feel of what this quadrant is supposed to do, and with the language as it sits now, if that's not what the community wanted there, or if it is, it's not reflected in the language. It only speaks to executive style, every single family housing only. And, you know, I definitely think if looking at residential in this area, if that's what it's destined to be, I see heavier density along I-69 and less density moving inward. That is not atypical for development around a highway, because I think we all pretty much are in agreement that no one is going to build $1 million house along a highway. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a developer that would be interested in doing that. So moving forward, Tim, what do you suggest our next, or the board as a whole, my apologies, what do you suggest that we do to get this conversation, continue moving on this conversation?
We're on the May agenda for the planning board. We'll see if we have any additional ideas or comments between now and then.
Sounds like maybe
And maybe,
call it mixed residential professional business district.
yeah, we might come up with a new name
Change
of
the
that,
language.
maybe Craig and his group, and you guys meet between now and first week of May.
And I would, I'd like to at some point talk with RDC or talk with the steering committee about, you know, if that original intent was to have that denser use near the highway, getting that language solidified, because if that's what we want to reflect and everyone's on board with that, it's
We can
not
rename it.
not
May.
stated that way, you know, even just adding the language, it just says residential right now. It doesn't say what kind until you get into the description of the Southwest quadrant. So
Actually, this would help in the discussion back when this plan was created was, look, this is a plan, good plan, based on what you said, but no definition has been given to what these names on these quadrants mean. That's gonna fall to the town of Pendleton, commissions, the people, as to what they want. So what you're doing, is perfect. You're actually doing exactly what Kim and Horn said it's gonna be done. It may take, we shouldn't put it all on the planning commission, but we take all.
Well, the main thing is we need to stay open-minded for what's being asked of us from that developer. It could potentially bring. What they could come in mind. So if you scroll down, I don't know if everybody knows this, you made the comment, or Stephanie, move the whole map down
Down to here.
yeah, regional ways, right there where it says turnpike, triangle, bike way.
Yeah.
Is that 550? Regional, no, the next road over the right. Regional waste just ran a sewer line.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We just ran a sewer line up to 550 South at a cost of $2 million out of our pocket. We're not gonna do anything with it. The only reason we did it was to protect our turf. We were afraid Anderson would come down here, like Scott said. You never know what they could do. We're getting into some turf wars around here, especially from our cousins to the south, the Eagles.
Hey, Craig, could you repeat your point about the definitions of residential? I couldn't quite hear you in the microphone.
I think I disconnected my microphone.
Oh.
What we were talking about, Hannah, was back when this plan was created, that was the suggestion. These were general names for these areas.
Uh-huh.
And we all needed, whoever we all is, needed to figure out exactly what we wanted within them. So it's exactly what the planning commission is thinking. And you're right, there's no rush on this. We can get that done. But Scott's not wrong either. When the developers show up, they're gonna say, what do you want there?
Right.
Well,
This.
It does, what Denise has said, and Hannah said it, but the text does describe for the southwest quadrant that it is.
Correct. The style of housing.
That's really what the problem is. So I think that's the problem. What we're asking you guys to do is, that's not, the problem is that's never gonna sell. That's not fair to the property. So what should we
how do we like
adjust it to that's reasonable and what we want?
it protects us?
Yeah, it reflects what we really.
Right, right.
That's
Yeah.
It's not an error, it's just that it just needs to be addressed.
Right.
Bring up is the feel, and I know Brad has mentioned it, and we've talked about the feel when you pull in the town. And I know we can't control everything, but looking at aesthetics and what keeps our community unique, and charming, and not just whatever gets developed looks the same here as it does where they developed anywhere else in the US. Making them have some differences on facade. I think of Village of West Clay. Their CVS doesn't look like any other CVS's.
Right.
I think we are one of two historic towns in our entire state, whether it's looking at our town from the old west side or the new west side. I think we want some continuity and make these developers, if it's a Starbucks, then how is that unique on the exterior compared to any others? You can see new growth areas that have more of a historic look, and there's different historic time periods. So I'm not talking, 1820, 1880s here, but your 1920s, your Art Deco, whatever it is, just something with some charm that when people come here, it's because we are a niche type of town that you don't get anywhere else. And I think that is just as important than deciding where different development occurs. It's how it looks, how it feels when you pull it.
Well,
And that bridge that connects both sides has that feel. And we want to keep that flowing through the current community as well as the new development.
I think it brings up a key question. Do we have the right architectural standards in place? I mean, if you were to look at what we have put together compared to Raleigh-Durham, RTP, I mean, down there they have what I would consider very good architectural standards with regards to construction, material, design, so that when you go past convenience stores and gas stations and things, they aren't obtrusive.
Right.
And I think that is one of the things that we have to put into place, because if we start allowing one-off development, perfect example is 146th and Cumberland Road. Noblesville originally had a requirement that there were to be no slab concrete structures going in down there. They were going to mandate brick facades on all the buildings. Well, the first ones that went in were brick facades, and very quickly they caved. And suddenly you have first development looking really sharp. And then we went into sort of standard, quick construction, lower cost on the surrounding developments. So I guess the question would be, how do we enhance our architectural standards to protect one-off developments if we begin allowing them down 38?
I totally agree with you. It's the one thing we've not addressed. I think you guys are expressing one of my irritants. When you go into a town that has a cool old downtown, but you exit and you feel like everything's 2020 architecture, and then all of a sudden you cross this line and you're like in 1920. And it's like, how did that happen? Why did they transition? Well, I think we're making that mistake. You exit off of 69, you should immediately say, oh, this is different. And it should be, the architectural standards should be so that it transitions you into an 1820 or 1920 look, which is what we've got down here, right? Building Yeah, Sandy. Okay. So, I mean, the one thing, I think it's cool, we're getting the Starbucks and all that, but I wish the Starbucks, we would have had those things in places so the Starbucks doesn't look like a Starbucks. And I think it's a huge mistake. And probably make up some lots of ground.
And I think that's what Hannah was referencing to the Keystone Development Standard, to have some more higher standards for architectural.
Yeah, but it needs to go not just in the
But
Keystone
like
area,
I
but
said,
that whole
yes,
quadrant.
You get a State Street overlay that goes all the way around.
Yeah. And it ought to be everywhere as you come up 9, as you come in on 36 from the east, as you come in from 38 on the east. All that's gonna develop too.
So what are the next steps to create that, Scott? Hannah?
Well, we would have to review our architecture standards. For each zone has kind of a standard minimum, and then each one has additional things that they have to be built to. Right now, I think they're very solid, but if you're seeing some issues with that, we can definitely review it at our next planning commission meeting and kind of see where we have some holes that we might need to fill in those gaps. I would like to make the comment that I completely understand what you're saying, but when it comes to the historic look versus like a modern look, how do I put this? So styles of things change over time. And if you look at our just historic downtown preservation design guidelines, which we just updated, if someone wants to build a building that looks modern, fills in a spot or, whatever, Tyler Martin's lot, for example, filling that in, I mean, to put it as Bob Post's words, he can build a spaceship, because as things move on, different styles happen. We don't want something to look necessarily like it was built in 1820 if it was built in 2025. So it kind of, I think there's a way that we could make our architecture standards a little stronger, but we don't want it to look fake. We don't want it to look like, something is being built to look like it's from 1820 when it's really not. So I think there's a really delicate balance there of how you would transition that from our actual existing historical downtown to make it not look like you're in Disneyland. You know what I mean? So I think that's something we could definitely review. I've wanted to review our architecture standards, and also keep in mind, we do have anti-monotony standards. So even though, excuse me, even though we allow certain materials and, we don't necessarily require full-on brick facades or things like that as of right now, and maybe there's areas we can use certain higher standards like that, all developers are required to come in with those anti-monotony standards, and they have to meet at least the minimums that we have, which is, I believe, 3 different types of materials. If you're in a commercial building, a certain width of your building frontage has to have bump outs or certain amount of windows, things like that, but specifically to subdivisions with anti-monotony. That's why those were put in the UDO, to prevent things like Brad, you were describing from happening. And I don't see those getting any less stringent. If anything, more options will be added and certain areas will have, those more closer areas to downtown will have those more stringent standards. But again, we just want to make sure we don't have the Disneyland effect, where things are built to look like something that they're really just not. So that was kind of my point. And then another thing was that, and Sandy might be able to speak to this literally a little more than I can. We're looking to add residential design standards for the existing downtown housing fabric that we have left. So that would be all of our RC zoning. And I know that's not in this plan or part of this plan, but we're looking to have the HPC expand their COA power area at some point to protect the fabric of downtown that we have right now. So, Broadway and, all the streets around that have those beautiful historic houses, making sure that those stay historic looking facades so that we don't fall off of our national register because we have no fabric left to be considered for a national register designation. So something like that is in the works, at least for the RC zoning. So we could easily kind of maybe merge that into some concentric circles outside of our historic downtown for development that does occur in the future.
I was just gonna comment that, I do think we need to put some thought into the portals, the entries in the town here in Scott. It's a difference when you're coming in, what your accent point is, and I think, materials are important, and I think we've done an okay job. That right now we're sitting at Starbucks is going back to Starbucks. I don't think it has to be like a Disneyland. I think unobtrusive is a great word that Brad used. You're talking green space there, and also talking materials. And so what I was really reacting to when I asked the question about, so how do we get the people in front of us, that it's hard to know when you're sitting here and you're trying to be objective to what the developers are bringing in. But those kind of things are really important to how a town looks and feels, and makes a difference to the people that are here, but also to the stay. So we have lost a lot of historic properties in town because we didn't put enough rigor into our parameters around what we can or can't do. We do have a group of townsfolk who are very vocal about don't hamper my rights to what I have the ability to do. But there are some the ways to stagger in historic preservation and protections that will make a difference in 100 years. So I believe that part of that has to be rolling in terms of that we need to not worry just about the language. My bias about the Southern Quadrant is leave it there now because we have control of how we would want to release it. But the other piece for me is I don't have great objections at all to making it more dense towards 69 and things like that. But I think these other things are really worrying me about what are we going to get caught in because we haven't put enough thought and living into what is it that we do want to demand, particularly from our focal entry points, portals and 15.
To be honest, my biggest concern is we allow construction and development that is being built to be scraped. You're looking at a short duration lifespan. They've got minimal investment in it. The facades aren't that great. The materials aren't that great. And you're going to end up just scraping it for the next build. If I look at a lot of the commercial development that I've seen around Anderson and around some of the communities, I mean, that very quickly sets the tone for the entryway into Pendleton if we allow it.
The only question I had was I looked at the next steps that were in the plan, and one was to create a plan development advisory team. And I'm just wondering if that is something that would make sense at this point. To pull in, various people with different ideas and I don't know, that it seemed to make sense, that could look at things like what the best use of the land is and,
Let's see what we come up with by the next meeting. Brainstorm, but
yeah,
only 2.5 weeks away.
The only thing I would caution against is that we study and delay too long and we lose control. So I think there is a sense of urgency with regards to the developers coming in, because we are going to be posed with questions and proposals. That meet our standards.
yeah.
So I think we're a few steps behind where I would like to be to make sure that we have all the controls in place. So sense of urgency.
I don't have anything further.
Just looking at the Southwest, thinking about it for a couple weeks.
Scott? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming. I think we made a lot of progress.
I just, a
Jeff,
logistics question, it's by for Jeff Graham, if we revisit this in May, does this require a public hearing notice? I know we're already past the deadline to meet that 10-day.
We only have to have a public hearing if we are going to actually provide a proposal for a change to the town council. Otherwise, we can talk like this anytime we want.
So
That's
they will do a public hearing notice for June.
For June.
meeting, but-
Yeah.
Yeah. Great, thanks.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the public too. Meeting adjourned.